good afternoon and welcome to Live Impact News right here on 13 News Now Plus. It is Monday morning, 10 o'clock a.m., April 13th. That's right, tax day, very close here, but we start this week with plenty of news to cover. We'll get to the taxes later on here, maybe Wednesday, Thursday. We'll talk a little bit more about that season ending. For now, though, we want to focus on some local to start out with here. We have got an incredible weather week coming up for you, scorching hot temperatures. Craig Moeller is already in the building. You can't see him, but I can. He looks wonderful.
Haven't started sweating yet.
Really?
But we're going to.
Okay, that's just a natural glisten you've got there then. I like that a lot. So we have a hot week coming up. Craig's going to break all of that down for you. We also had a violent weekend at the Oceanfront. Another shooting at the Oceanfront. 8 people shot, no fatalities, but this comes about a month after a prior shooting at the Oceanfront that led to changes in curfew rules. What's next for Virginia Beach as they work on this issue? We also are going to go international here, as we have so frequently on Live Impact News over the past 6 weeks, because the ceasefire in Iran continues to be in a very fragile place. Negotiations over the weekend between J.D. Vance and his cohort, along with Iranian diplomats, did not result in a permanent peace deal. Following that, gas prices have jumped up once again. Oil prices over $100 a barrel. We'll have an expert on to break down that situation. So we've got a lot to come for you here on Live Impact News. But as previously stated, we begin, as we so often do, with weather, because Craig Moeller is here to talk about maybe a record coming our way.
Going to be really close.
Close.
Going to be very, very close. Yeah, I hope everybody's ready for it. We've been talking about this for a while, how temperatures normally this time of year right around 69 degrees. Yesterday, 68 was the high. And as we look forward, I think Wednesday we've got a very legitimate shot at hitting the record high on Wednesday. It's actually 90 and 91 on Thursday. So we've got a run of hot weather coming. Today it won't be quite that hot, but we're going to be up in the lower to mid 80s. And that's thanks to a southwest wind. Did you notice that coming in? It's a little bit breezy out there.
Yeah, I was out there and I looked around and I tried to get directional with it, and I was like, this is southwest. It smells like southwest. It feels like southwest.
You can feel it. Yeah.
I could tell where it was coming from.
Start to feel a little bit of that kind of warm dog breath kind of feel on your face.
Well, warm dog breath is not where I wanted to go this early, Craig.
That's the warm
dog breath?
That is the warm southwest
wind. For anyone who is eating a lovely breakfast while they watch us this morning, we would like to apologize for that.
Who doesn't love the puppy's breath on you?
That's fair. That's fair. Puppy breath is a different story. That's just plain old
Let's get into
cute.
the forecast, Connor. As we look forward, I'm the one that started with the dog's breath. We have temperatures that will climb tomorrow, mid to upper 80s, near 90. I think 89 officially for Wednesday, upper 80s on Thursday. It's coming. Now, you take a look here off over northern Virginia. You see some showers. It'd be good to get some of that. We need the rain. We are 3 inches below average for the year, and we're not going to see good chances anytime real soon. I'm going to be interested to see as we do this Live Impact News update. We're going to take a look at the European model in just a moment, because it was updating and it was offering at least a chance for a few sprinkles on Friday. So as we go along, you can see again, skies are going to be partly to mostly sunny. It will be warm. That southwest wind blowing that warm air back across the region tomorrow, right around 86 for high in Norfolk. And then as we go, temperatures get even warmer on Wednesday. Look at this, upper 80s to near 90 for downtown Norfolk. So at the airport, probably about 89. Downtown, close to 90. We could hit 90 at the airport. That would set or tie the record. Now, getting into Thursday, another warm day there. Let's see what the Euro is updating. And again, this came down during Weather Desk. It was updating when I was on live between 9 and 9:30. So as we take a look here, you can see Wednesday, we're still dry. That moisture out to the west. The Euro is cranking up some pretty heavy rain. And I do want to mention this too. The potential for severe storms today across southern portions of Minnesota up into Wisconsin, southern Wisconsin. That area primed for that. As we get into Wednesday, it shifts just a little farther east. Thursday, just a little farther east. Some of these areas that you're seeing with the heavy rain, from northern Indiana into Illinois and parts of Wisconsin, they could get like 3 days, 3 rounds of rough weather. As we go again, you can see by Friday afternoon, this is a change from what we had on 13 News Now at daybreak. These are updated models. They come into our system, and we get them regularly updating every 3 to 6 hours, depending on the model and the runs. But this is the first time that the Euro's produced actually a few sprinkles this far south on Friday. So I'd say a slight chance there. The model's still updating, so it hasn't come all the way in. The better chances for rain coming on Sunday during the afternoon. But we need that rain so much, even if we got a little bit on Friday, anything we can get would be helpful. Temperatures right now headed for highs today in the mid-80s. I think we're going to see right around 84 officially. Some areas in the south side, 85. 85 up around Newport News, Hampton, Poquoson, Williamsburg, all those areas. 79 around Matthews. We'll see temperatures a little cooler to the eastern shore. Outer Banks, mid to upper 70s. Low to mid 80s as we look inland across North Carolina. Tonight's low down around 64, partly cloudy. For tomorrow, 86. So we are warming it up, and there's the 7-day forecast. Our temperatures are going to be close to that record on Wednesday. The high there expected to be just within a degree of the record. 88 on Thursday, and temperatures staying quite warm as we go through the weekend. By early next week, temperatures step back a little bit, back into the mid to upper 60s. So cooler for the following week, but until then, it is going to be warm for sure.
Two questions for you, Craig. If we're talking average temps, as they typically are, where would you plot this week? Is this an early June week, a mid-June week?
Yeah. This is more typical. I would say even late June, mid to late June. Yeah, it is warm. These temperatures up, a good 15 to 20 degrees above average. So this is not typical for this time of year for sure. I can tell you, again, we need the rain, and I was pulling up the drought monitor just to show you guys. We talked a lot about this last week when the drought monitor came down last Thursday. But as we take a look across the country, some areas in better shape, like California, really not doing that bad across most of California. You look up towards like Oregon, and we were saying on the weather desk, they're preparing for a rougher fire season. It is terribly dry over the northwest part of Colorado, Aspen, Vail, Steamboat, these areas with snow drought, and they are just exceptionally dry. So high fire risk, and they're going to have water issues over the summer. I want to take you down to Georgia. There, 98% of Georgia is under some kind of drought right now. Florida in bad shape as well. So a lot of folks really need rain. We could use the rain here, and it just doesn't look like we're going to see it anytime soon. I did want to just very quickly, if we have time, are we good, Sarah? Because I'd like to show you guys very quickly the outlook here with our temperatures, and then take a quick look at our extended outlook, the 8 to 14 days. So there you have it, some of the model output. You see that drop in temp for Monday and Tuesday, then we go right back up. As far as temperatures go, again, we're not going to see good chances for rain anytime soon. Out 8 to 14 days. This takes us through the end of April. You'll see it popping up here. There's a look at the moisture. Some wet weather for the central U.S., but dry for the southeast. We should be pretty close to average. But when you look at those temperatures, it looks like we're going to stay well above average through the end of April as well. So a little bit cooler early next week, but after that, temperatures warming back up. So we need to get ready for more heat.
A rain question for you. I feel like this might end up being a really silly question, but I still want to ask it. If we are in those tough drought conditions and we get rain just north of us, if we get Richmond rain in that sort of area, does the rain up there, does that improve our condition at all?
So that's actually not a silly question. Okay, so yeah, I'll take that pressure off you right away. Those rains that sometimes fall to the west or to the north of us will feed into some of the river basins. But so much of what we count on here, I mean, some of our inland areas are affected a little bit by that. You know, think about places out like, say, along the Blackwater and out towards Franklin, Stony Creek, some of these different communities out west. They certainly monitor the rainfall and the fall into the river basins. For our area, it's so, our moisture, we really need to get the rain here. And we're talking about soil moisture, not just, like water that comes up and drops. We need our ground moisture to come up a little bit. And that's not looking very likely for us. And you guys remember last week, Sarah, we were talking about the developing El Nino. So we have the El Nino, And this coming in, it can create all kinds of trouble out west. It knocks down the hurricane development here.
Shear winds?
Yeah, the winds shear them apart.
The wind shear.
But my point is, those tropical systems that we get, while they're disruptive, they do bring beneficial rain to parts of the area. Like Georgia would take a tropical rain to help offset their drought conditions. And if we do get into a strong El Nino and it really suppresses the Atlantic hurricane season, that could set up some issues for the southeast U.S. Now, Samantha's in here as a producer along with Sarah. Samantha, you spent some time out in Sacramento. You know the El Nino there in California. You get into the winter with El Nino, it can create all kinds of trouble with excessive rainfall and landslides and stuff like that. Were you out there for any of those types of events when you were out in Sacramento?
Not in Sacramento, but we did cover a lot of fires. We had the Pineapple Express, where you're like raining for like 14 days straight.
Yep, that's one of the atmospheric rivers that just streams in. Yep.
And so we had a bit of flooding, and the river levels rush up. So people would get caught up in those types of things, but not in the valley. You don't necessarily see that. I think the biggest concern is just for flooding, but not the landslides. The interesting thing that I learned about Sacramento, because I've never lived out there or spent much time out in Sacramento, you would think that area that far inland wouldn't have to worry about tidal fluctuations, but they do. And that's one of the areas in the country that's more susceptible to the rising tides and sea level rise in general as well. So anyway, we're all taking a look at all of this. My point is, while the El Nino is beneficial in some respects, we certainly don't want to get slammed by a hurricane or a tropical system. There are some parts of the southeast U.S. that would actually benefit from some tropical rain if this drought pattern persists.
We're trying to thread that needle, right? It's difficult. Obviously we do not want any devastating major weather disasters, but it is helpful in some ways if you get that lighter tropical rain. Another silly question. Under these current conditions and what we expect, should people be advised to use their sprinklers more often? Does that help at all?
So we don't have any water restrictions right now. Right. It's one of those things you may need to, especially if you've got new grass seed down. I know, Sarah, you were talking about getting your lawn in shape, and I don't know what your experts, I know she's got some professionals helping her a little bit, but you've got to make sure, if you've done seeding early in the season or whatever, you've got to make sure it's getting ample moisture. It's just, this is a very dry period. Now, when it gets dry and brutally hot as temperatures are rising, that creates another host of issues as well. So we'll have
the passions of Sarah Calloway: lawn care and scrapbooking.
Yeah, she's adulting now. Hey, real quick, did you guys touch, or are you guys going to talk about Artemis a little bit more?
We were going to ask you how you felt about the conclusion of the mission, and we know how passionate you were about the whole thing.
So it's incredible. Obviously, textbook splashdown. They could not have been happier. Everything was perfect. The crew has been amazing. They had their press conferences in Houston, and I've heard from so many different people how proud as Americans, that NASA did this and that we were able to unite behind the astronauts, and how cool that was to see that. What got me most excited, obviously welcoming the astronauts home. That was tremendous, and just how incredibly smart NASA is, and all of the engineers and all the people that work on these missions. But what's coming next? 2027, Artemis 3.
Yep.
Low Earth orbit, okay, or we're going to stay fairly close to Earth. They're going to do rendezvous practices with capsules that may become, the plan is lunar landers. So they're going to work that out in 2027. Right now, Artemis 4 planned for 2028, humans back on the moon.
And this is this was the first step, right? That's the plan.
The first step, Artemis 1, was just sending out this capsule, just seeing, hey, can this rocket make it out there and come back? It performed great. Now we're like, okay, let's see how humans handle this. That's what Artemis 2 was. We got the pictures of the moon. That was great, okay? But that wasn't as much science as far as studying the moon as studying how humans were out in that capsule going through the voyage and back. Next is, okay, how is this capsule going to interact with the lunar landers? Are they going to be able to have a steady thing where they can dock and undock and rendezvous with this stuff? And then after that, if all systems are go,
Mars is next.
Let's put somebody down on the moon.
Put someone on the moon.
But that's going to be a jump eventually. Yeah.
That's our layover. That's our layover to Mars.
Establish a colony on the moon.
Yeah.
A longer lasting base camp on the moon.
And can we go ahead and report right now that if there was a colony on the moon and it was a raffle situation, you would be one of the first to sign up?
I don't know if my wife would have me sign up or if she wouldn't let me. I'm not sure how that goes. I would be interested in exploring, some kind of a space venture. Mm-hmm. But man, that's something else. So we'll see. It's exciting. Again, I think for American pride and seeing what was done, it was incredible. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing right now some of the video. Is that the actual video or is that
I think it's
very
the splashdown?
Cool.
It's part of the...
Yeah. I can't say. I didn't see the top of that. Were the chutes deployed at that point yet? Or is it still falling in? Anyway, I couldn't see if it was farther up. But anyway, that's kind of across. Just incredible work. And to hear the astronauts, I mean, they just highlight of life.
Seeing them come out of the shuttle for the first time, and they've been in that environment that's extremely impactful on the body. They come out of the shuttle, watching them have to get back used to being on Earth was very interesting for me. They've been in space for 10 days. Now, just for a brief moment, Earth is the foreign planet to them, just for a moment until they reacclimate themselves. I thought that was
wild,
really interesting.
and we heard the commander say, look at that. It's just so cool. I can't believe they go from 25,000 miles an hour down to 25 miles an hour and splash down. It's just incredible. It's incredible.
How about a big shout out to parachutes? Right? Little thought of, often necessary.
How about a big shout out to the first person to try this thing?
I know.
And, to say, I think I folded it right. Hopefully this will unfurl the right way.
Let's double check those cords.
It's incredible. It's amazing. But to hear the commander say, we got up there, we had our mission, we knew we were there. It was such a thrill to get out there to see these things, unbelievable. But at one point in the mission, all they could think about was getting back home. And that's it's the human experience in that just unbelievable environment. It's just tremendous. So what just an amazing time there. And there's the splashdown.
Mm-hmm. And in 2026, we have such phenomenal access to videos like this. The entire thing documented and available to the public.
There was and again, I'm hoping I'm not pushing up shit, Sarah. You can just throw your hand up if I need to shut up real quick. But I saw a video over the weekend talking about the history of that Earthrise photo. Did you guys see that by any chance? Where they had the astronauts talking, and at first they weren't planning on shooting that. They were just out documenting the moon's surface and shooting black and white. And one of the astronauts said to the man that was taking the picture, and I'm terrible at this that I can't remember everybody's specific names, but he said, hey, get some color film, get some color. Like they saw that all of a sudden there was this blue Earth relative to everything else. It was pretty much lunar gray and whites, and they're like, get the color. And they were literally fumbling around to get it in that moment. And now you take a look at the high definition, the amazing resolution, being able to see so much of this in real time. It is truly amazing what I think we are in store for looking forward with space exploration.
And a story that I found, at least anecdotally in my life, was something that each and every person I talked to about it was extremely excited about it, passionate about it, interested in it for the most part, to where it's that coming together effect, where so many things that we talk about now are so incredibly bipartisan, and we live in a very divisive time. And then something like this, to see that unifying effect that it was able to have, whether you're connected to the astronauts, space travel, advances in technology, all of it.
International appeal as well.
Right.
Everybody wants, it's like the International Space Station. There's so much that is going on in the name of science and advancing the human race and the planet in general. One of the things that the astronauts kept coming back to, and you hear it and you're like, yeah, okay, that's great. But then I started thinking about it. I said, it's really great, okay? When I was a little guy, all right, and again, I'm giving away age here a little bit, but I mean, in the early 70s, I was a peanut, okay? I was very young, all right? But we had astronauts that were doing lunar exploration, and we knew, oh my gosh, the thought of like an astronaut on the moon was like something that was there, and then it wasn't, okay? what I think this mission will do, and especially the subsequent missions, think about all the 3 and 4 and 5 and 6-year-old kids that are going to grow up ready to go, ready to take that next step and really go forward. The shuttles were significant in that we built the space station. We were able to launch just telescopes. We were able to really learn to live extended periods weightless. It's all part of the progress. But I think what we're seeing now is going to incite such excitement and fervor for the space program. That's what gets me most excited as somebody with a science background and a passion for it, is that this is going to spark the next wave, and we're going to get, as bright and brilliant as these NASA folks are, the best of the best of the best will continue to flood in. And with this much interest, it's super exciting to think about where this can go.
And an interest in this is an interest in science. And an interest in science could lead you to being a part of NASA, or it could lead you to being a meteorologist. It could lead you into medical research. I mean, that inspiration is going to have tentacles that stretch far and wide. So it's awesome. It's very exciting. And later in the show, if we have time, we do have the press conference with those astronauts. We've got some things we want to get to before that, but we may get to that. We'll keep everyone posted. You mentioned extended periods of weightlessness. That is what we get anytime you join us, Craig Moeller. We greatly appreciate your time this morning. As always, a wonderful forecast, and we'll keep an eye on those potential 90-degree temps as well.
Yeah, they're coming, guys. Stay cool over the coming days and just know that heat's coming. One last thing, wear your sunscreen. That sun angle getting high. I know it's still April, but that sun will get you, so make sure you're putting on the sunscreen.
Very good. Feels like late June. You'd wear sunscreen in late June, so don't hesitate to wear it in April. All right, we're going to take a brief commercial break here on Live Impact. When we get back, some of those other headlines, especially here locally, that we wanted to get to. But first, a quick break. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. Now, we're going to stay here locally in Hampton Roads for this next segment because on Saturday night, there was a shooting at the Oceanfront. 8 people shot at the Oceanfront. They ranged from ages 17 to 24. So again, very young. We have seen that earlier this spring, younger people involved in a shooting at the Oceanfront. Now, all of those people are expected to survive. This happened around 14th Street on Atlantic Avenue. One suspect has been arrested. Jemiah Williams, 18 years old, out of Henrico County, has been arrested. It's a lengthy list of charges. I'm going to read through them here quickly for you. 7 counts of aggravated assault, 7 counts of use of a firearm and commission of a felony, 7 counts of reckless handling of a firearm with injury, and 3 counts of violation of a protective order. So, Jemiah Williams facing those charges, arrested in connection to this shooting. However, police are seeking others as they work through their investigation. There are other suspects that police are on the lookout for. One of those suspects in particular has been named in our reporting. Isaiah Charity, 18 years old, out of Richmond, is being sought with outstanding warrants in relation to this shooting. Police are looking for information on his whereabouts. They're also seeking a third person, an unidentified black male who was wearing a dark-colored hoodie with possible red lettering on the back. Still seeking information not just on his whereabouts, but his identity. The 7 people shot, both males and females, and they came from all over. Portsmouth, Richmond, Lancaster, Chesterfield, Snellville, Georgia, all different sort of locations of people, and there was a lot of traveling towards the oceanfront this weekend because it was beach weekend down at the Virginia Beach oceanfront. So that may explain why more people from out of town were involved in this, though it's a tourist destination. There's always people from out of town out and about in Virginia Beach during the spring and summertime. Now, this follows another shooting at the oceanfront from, again, just over a month ago. That shooting led to actual tangible changes in rules in Virginia Beach. A 7 p.m. curfew was instituted for minors after that particular shooting. Now, in terms of date, I'll try to be more exact for you. The last shooting we're referring to happened March 7th at the oceanfront. An 18-year-old was arrested in connection with that shooting, and that was 6 people shot in that situation. So, a second shooting in just over a month. Rules already changed after the first shooting. It remains to be seen what we'll see as the consequences to this shooting in terms of any tangible changes that may be coming into effect. For now, though, you just hope for the best for the families and those who were injured, and hope that the investigation concludes with all suspects being found and arrested. And, you know, we have a little bit of sound from the oceanfront that night. We had reporters on scene, a brief press conference from the oceanfront that night. Let's go out to that previously recorded interview.
Yes, sir. All right. Good evening, everyone. Shortly before 10 p.m. this evening, officers heard and responded to the sound of gunfire in the 1400 block of Atlantic Avenue. Once on scene, our officers located multiple victims. They immediately rendered aid. Those victims are currently being treated at area hospitals. We're still waiting for a status update on their condition. This is an active and ongoing investigation. We are looking for any potential witnesses who can help identify suspects related to this case. We would encourage anybody who has information to call Virginia Beach Crime Solvers or our non-emergency number at 757-385-5000. Again, this is an active and ongoing investigation. We will provide more updates and information as we understand them.
Do we know what led to the shooting?
That's still ongoing at this time.
Have we identified any suspects or any weapons used?
It's early. This was a gunfire incident. We are still looking to identify suspects and any other particular details related to the incident. But again, this is an active and ongoing investigation. Very early on, we're still looking and gathering for those details.
As people come to Virginia Beach to have fun from other states, and this is the second time this type of thing has happened, can you describe the human emotions behind that?
Our primary concern all the time is public safety. This is a resort area, and we want and encourage people to visit our community. We are always concerned, and we will continue to make public safety a priority. And anytime incident like this happens, we are we take it very seriously, and we understand the concern on the part of the public and the community and people who would come to visit. But again, we're here. We take public safety very seriously, and we will continue to do so.
It's my understanding that it happened right here in front of Pier Shores, this building right here. Can you confirm that and how that played out in front of this on the
We know that it happened in the 1400 block of Atlantic Avenue.
Do you have a total count for victims?
That's still to be determined. We're still gathering all that information.
Is there a threat with a suspect at large?
While we're still looking to gather those details, we do not believe that there is an ongoing threat to public safety. Again, we would just encourage anybody who has information that we may not know at this time to contact us.
Kind of piggybacking off of what Derek said, this is the second time something's like happening just in the recent memory. You guys already implemented the curfew. What next could you possibly do to stop these incidents from happening?
Well, we know that we have a very significant police presence here, but that's not always the only solution, right? So we are going to continue to partner with our community, members of our business community, and educate our guests on the laws, what they can do to remain safe and enjoy our community. It's certainly concerning that this has happened. It's not something that we want to have happen. But again, we're taking significant measures to make sure that everybody who comes to enjoy the beach is protected.
You had said something that there's not an ongoing threat. Does that mean the person responsible for this is in custody?
We're still gathering that information. We're still gathering the additional information related to the potential suspects or victims. We'll provide more information at a later time.
Is there still a danger to the community?
We do not believe that there's still a danger.
All right, one more question.
You talk about, I see a family with a stroller trying to enjoy the beachfront. This community matters to you. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
We welcome everybody to the beach. We want everybody who comes here, the over 14 million people per year, to come and enjoy our city. We know that when an incident like this happens, it causes concern, whether it be the family with the stroller or the individual from out of town just by themselves. That's why we take these so seriously, and we will do everything we can to continue to ensure for the public safety.
And just one more follow-up. The people who are responsible for this, are they in custody, or is there still a threat to the community?
There's no threat that we believe at this time to the community. We're still gathering the details pertaining to the suspects or victims.
Some would think that's good news. There's no more threat to the community.
Right.
Yep. Last question, guys, and I'll follow up with emails as things progress, okay?
Okay, welcome back into Live Impact News. As you just heard from Deputy Chief Zelms just there, that's the night of the shooting. You heard our Derek Lytle asking questions. He was on the scene. He'll have further reporting on this story today, as we are expecting a press conference from Mayor Bobby Dyer and Police Chief Newdigate at 3 p.m. today. We will have reporting from that press conference, 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m., and of course at 11, our 6:30 stream as well. So that is something to be on the lookout for as this investigation continues following yet another violent incident here in Virginia Beach at the Oceanfront. Now, what we want to do is look at a map here so we can get a better understanding of where exactly this was. Many, not just tourists, but locals frequent the Oceanfront for dinner, for nights out, for beach days, and so we want to get a better sense of where this is. Now, you'll see that is Atlantic Ave and 14th Street. Obviously, it's an approximate guess, but this is the location that we were given for the shooting. So this is the general area. Now, you can see right there, that Virginia Beach fishing pier, Ocean Eddy's restaurant, 16th Street in the vicinity. This is a very popular part of the oceanfront. That Virginia Beach fishing pier is something of a local landmark, right? And there's heavy foot traffic around that area, especially on the boardwalk. This obviously happened on Atlantic, which is a street up from the boardwalk. You see Pacific Avenue up there towards the left where there's maybe a little bit more traffic, but there are still plenty of attractions up there on Pacific Avenue as well. That Virginia Legends Walk that you see a little closer towards being in between 14th and 13th Street, another one of those local landmarks where sort of Commonwealth legends are memorialized in a nice sort of setup where they have different information and statues, and again, something that could potentially draw tourists and more foot traffic. The Sandcastle Resort Hotel there, those pier shops, this layout is exactly what you'll see in a lot of different areas of the oceanfront. You'll have your pier shops where tourists can step in and get either Virginia Beach memorabilia or items that they need for the beach. So this is that area where you will see a heavy amount of tourists and people and locals all throughout the warm springtime and the summertime. So this is something that obviously is going to draw a lot of attention. If you look up just a little bit closer towards those higher street numbers, the Virginia Beach Convention Center, not far from this area. Obviously, the Convention Center, home to conventions and graduations, the graduation time, of course, coming up for our local high schools in a few months. So this is obviously an area that has plenty of restaurants, shops, and again, that Virginia Beach fishing pier really stands out as just being right there and is a place where if you go there during June, July, and even May, it's a very, very sort of crowded area where there's a lot of people, and a lot of people for good reason, because it's a wonderful place to spend time when it's warm out in Virginia Beach. So we will see how law enforcement looks to go forward. We know just from some reporting and some observation, there is an elevated amount of law enforcement at the oceanfront just in general. So this is something that will not be far from city leaders and law enforcement's minds as they go about creating the safest possible environment for everyone, locals and tourists alike, at the oceanfront this summer. And we continue to see images here on your screen from that night. This is footage that our photographers got that night out at the oceanfront. As anytime something like this happens, it creates a very chaotic scene, especially on a weekend where you have more visitors than usual. And as you can see, a heavy police presence, lots of yellow tape, and the only positive you can take from this is that no one was hurt in this nobody was fatally hurt in this situation. Of course, 8 people were in fact hurt, and many of those injuries were very serious, but nobody passed on from this incident. So that is a piece of solace that you can take from what happened at the oceanfront over the weekend. And again, another reminder, 3:00 p.m., that press conference with the Virginia Beach mayor and police chief. We do expect Jemiah Williams, the suspect who was arrested, to be in court this morning. So that's something that our reporters here at 13 News Now will be keeping an eye on. Jemiah Williams, arrested as a suspect in this case, will be in court this morning, and those other suspects, police continue to search for them. And it's just something that we all are keeping an eye on. Let's see, we also will have, I wanted to check our itinerary here for our reporters. We will also have a reporter who is keeping an eye on Jemiah Williams' potential court appearance. Our own Patrick Gray will be covering that today. That'll be 4, 5, and 6 as well. So I'm getting a note here from our producers. We got Samantha and Sarah, 2 producers today. Double the excellence. What's up, Samantha?
She's supposed to have another court hearing at 2 p.m. So she has one this morning in arraignment and then another one at 2 p.m. because she's being charged in both courts. So we will have reporters on both of those.
Okay, excellent. We have a morning arraignment and a 2 p.m. court appearance as well. And again, let's give another shout out here. That's Samantha. She has joined us this week to learn a little more about Live Impact News, to help us in here as we go through our show. So Samantha, wonderful to have you here. Is there anything you would like to add? Just an intro and a hello.
Hello, thank you for having me. That's it.
It was wonderful to have you here. Thanks for being here with us as we kind of make our way through the news this morning. And going forward, you may be seeing more of Samantha. We certainly hope so. For the time being, though, we are going to go ahead and toss to a commercial break. When we get back, as you know, plenty more headlines to go through. And we're also going to have, of course, an update on the war in Iran and a special guest here to talk about gas prices as well, as that's already been impacted after the negotiations over the weekend did not create a permanent solution to this war. So first a commercial break, then we'll get into that. Okay, welcome back to Live Impact News. Thanks for being with us this morning. Thanks for being with us on this Monday as we get a little closer towards sort of the middle of April here. Kind of crazy to say, but we are rapidly moving through the springtime, and we're rapidly moving through this 2-hour stream. We've talked a lot of local news to start out, but now let's kind of shift our focus to that international news that has been leading the headlines for 6 to 7 weeks here. Let's do some updates on where things stand with the war in Iran, a war that remains under a tentative ceasefire, a ceasefire with a 2-week timeline, and a ceasefire that has already seen violence resume in some areas in the wake of that ceasefire. Now, the U.S. military has announced it will begin a blockade of all Iranian ports and coastal areas today, Monday. Trump's earlier vow to entirely block the Strait of Hormuz is one that has not necessarily come to fruition from our reporting. It has transitioned to a blockade of all Iranian ports. Now, we also have a sort of careful situation where there was negotiation between J.D. Vance, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and Iranian diplomats over the weekend that did not lead to a permanent solution. It did not lead to a sort of permanent ceasefire between the two nations. Now, Iran has responded with threats on ports in the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman following the United States announcement that it will blockade all Iranian ports and coastal areas. So Iran has responded with threats on different ports, the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. According to the Islamic Republic of Iran Broadcasting, here's a quote here: "Security in the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman is either for everyone or for no one. No port in the region will be safe," from the Iranian military there. Now, those ceasefire talks, they ended in the early hours of Sunday, again with no agreement. That 2-week truce expires on April 22nd, so there is still time in that 2-week truce. These talks happened in Islamabad, which is the capital of Pakistan, both sides blaming each other for the talks not resulting in a more permanent solution. And then a piece of this reporting this morning that is very much related to the war in Iran. The war in Iran has led to many public figures speaking out. That includes Pope Leo. Now, Pope Leo spoke out, which led to a response from President Donald Trump on Truth Social. President Donald Trump addressing the Pope directly here in his post, the first Pope to come from the United States of America here. I'm going to read at least a portion of this. Pope Leo is weak on crime and terrible for foreign policy. He talks about fear of the Trump administration, but doesn't mention the fear of the Catholic Church and all other Christian organizations had during COVID when they were arresting priests, ministers, and everybody else for holding church services, even when going outside and being 10 and even 20 feet apart. So, hearkening back to COVID in his addressing of the Pope here in 2026, now going to talk about others. I like his brother Louis much better than I like him because Louis is all MAGA. He gets it, and Leo doesn't. I don't want a pope who thinks it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Now, sort of subject matter-wise, making his way back to the war in Iran. I don't want a pope who thinks it's terrible that America attacked Venezuela, a country that was sending massive amounts of drugs into the United States, and even worse, emptying their prisons, including murderers, drug dealers, and killers into our country. That, of course, goes back to the capture and arrest of Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, who remains in custody here in the United States. That, of course, one of the international situations that happened before the war in Iran began. He wasn't on any list to be pope and was only put there by the church because he was an American, and they thought that would be the best way to deal with President Donald J. Trump. If I wasn't in the White House, Leo wouldn't be in the Vatican. So again, the beginning of that stands out, right? Addressing Pope Leo directly and noting that he is weak on crime and terrible for foreign policy, kind of bringing the Pope into the political landscape in the midst of the Pope's comments during this war in Iran. We got more comments from the Pope following the back and forth. Let's take a listen now to what Pope Leo had to say.
What did you think? He said that you were terrible at foreign policy, you had fear of the Trump administration.
I have no fear of neither the Trump administration nor speaking out loudly about the message of the gospel. And that's what I believe. I am called to do what the church is called to do. We're not politicians. the message of the gospel is very clear. Blessed are the peacemakers. I will not shy away from announcing the message of the gospel, of inviting all people to look for ways of building bridges for peace and reconciliation, of looking for ways to avoid war anytime that's possible, to put my message on the same plane as what the president has attempted to do here, I think is not understanding what the message of the gospel is. And I'm sorry to hear that, but I will continue on what I believe is the mission of the church in Virginia.
Okay, not totally easy to hear Pope Leo. We thought it was important to try to play as many of his words as we could make out. That interview obviously happening on a plane that certainly sounds like it was in mid-flight. The thing that stands out, again, similar to that tweet, those first couple sentences, I have no fear of the Trump administration, nor speaking out loudly about the message of the gospel. That's what I believe in. I am called to do what the church is called to do. We're not politicians. We're not to make foreign policies from the same perspective that he might understand it, but I do believe in the message of the gospel. And then he went on so forth from there. So President Donald Trump and Pope Leo exchanging words over the weekend, and we'll see if any further comment comes from the president in regards to that situation. Now, we did have further comment from the president about that blockade. I want to read through this very quickly here as a comment on social media just after that blockade is expected to begin today. Trump said, warning, if any of these ships come anywhere close to our blockade, they will be immediately eliminated using the same system of kill that we use against the drug dealers on boats at sea. That was on Trump's Truth Social platform. He added that it is quick and brutal. So the ceasefire currently does hold in many senses. But as you can tell just from our first few updates this morning, it remains fragile. And there remain threats of violence. And there remain stalled negotiations and disagreements between the two sides. So that carries on. And comments from the president did make their way here to Hampton Roads. Let's hone back in on the Commonwealth on Virginia, because Virginia was specifically mentioned by the president on Truth Social as well over the weekend. Heading to Virginia for meetings at Trump National. I can't believe what this new governor, Spanberger, has done to the Commonwealth. So sad. She is adding so many taxes, a food and beverage tax, digital services tax, utilities tax, and more. It has lost its energy, vitality, and strength. People are leaving that would never even have thought of doing so. New companies that signed to come into the Commonwealth under Governor Youngkin are now looking for ways to get out, break their deal. And that continues on in a similar vein here. Spanberger mentioned again by name. People that voted for Spanberger are saying to themselves, why did I do that? What have I done? We have a similar situation in New York and most of all California. Other large populated Democratic states being called out here as well. So that is in the headlines. Virginia is in the headlines following that particular Truth Social post, and Governor Abigail Spanberger did in fact respond to the president, also via social media, this time on X. What did the new governor of Virginia, the first woman to be governor of Virginia, have to say about those comments? She said, the president lied about me today on social media. While he tries to distract from the soaring gas prices and economic worry he has caused, here's what we are doing in Virginia. I've signed dozens of bipartisan bills into law to address high housing, healthcare, and energy costs, and not the taxes the president and his allies are lying about, to name a few. Stopping predatory middlemen from driving up the cost of prescription drugs, incentivizing the construction of housing Virginians can actually afford, protecting families from covering the cost of energy infrastructure and improvements. She continues. She lists a number of those laws. We've covered them some here on Live Impact News. We will continue to cover those on 13 News Now. I'm not going to go entirely into each and every one. She did note that she signed bills to accelerate $7.1 billion invested in new energy technology. I've signed bills, again, to accelerate $7.1 billion in capital investment projects and will bring more than 3,250 jobs to our Commonwealth. So Governor Spanberger, responding to the direct address from the president, mentioned twice by name in a Donald Trump Truth Social post speaking about Virginia, as Governor Spanberger has started off her term again by signing a number of bills into law as Democrats have taken a hold of the House of Delegates and the governorship, as you can see here. So Abigail Spanberger not holding back on social media in responding to President Donald Trump calling out both her and Virginia in particular, and supporting Glenn Youngkin, the former governor, who was, in fact, much more aligned with and supportive of Trump during his governorship. Now, oil prices were mentioned in Governor Spanberger's response. Those oil prices have, in fact, jumped following negotiations stalling out without a solution over the weekend. Prices jumped to more than $100 a barrel following those negotiations and the United States' plans to blockade Iranian ports. So we saw last week after the ceasefire, those gas prices dipped down quite a bit. Now, after negotiations stalled, gas prices jump back up. Both gas prices and the stock market have sort of carefully followed the up and down flow of this war. When it looks like there will be a ceasefire or an end to the war, those prices, both the stock market and at the gas pump, have tended to drop in the case of gas prices and go up in the case of the stock market. When violence resumes or looks like it will resume, there is a rise in gas prices and a drop in the stock market for the most part. That is what we have seen. Now, after the break here, we're actually going to bring on an expert to talk a little bit more about some of these changes here. We have an expert from Gas Buddy joining us today. He joins us quite frequently. Patrick DeHaan will be on at 11 a.m. We're going to take a break before we get to that interview. When we come back, we will have Mr. DeHaan on to talk a little bit about what some of this means, what we can expect to see, the impacts here in Hampton Roads specifically as opposed to nationally, and how this could impact summer travel, how that could sort of have a trickle-down effect to our tourism industry here in Virginia Beach, all next on Live Impact News, as we have a special guest on, our first one of the week, unless you count Samantha as a special guest, because she did join us very briefly. But if not, we'll have our first guest coming up next. Okay, back here this morning on Live Impact News, about 10:57 a.m. We carry on with the topics that we were discussing just before we went to break. We're actually going to hear from Senator Mark Warner, one of our senators right here in Virginia, about the blockade of Iranian ports. He was on CNN's show State of the Union, and he spoke about this war in Iran. Let's listen to Senator Warner now.
But I don't understand how blockading the strait is going to somehow push the Iranians into opening it. I don't get the connection there. You're going to see these energy prices continue at record levels, not for weeks, but months and years. And how blockading the strait gets it open suddenly, I don't get that logic.
Okay, so Senator Warner, in his view, American blockades in the Gulf will not be something that helps gas prices. Again, that's according to Senator Warner while participating in the State of the Union on CNN. Let's talk about just numbers here. What have we seen specifically as we head into Monday morning? Oil prices rose. Again, early market trading Sunday after the U.S. announced its blockade that began or is beginning today. The price of crude oil, 8% rise, $104.24 a barrel. And Brent crude oil, which is sort of the international standard, that rose 7%, $102.29 a barrel. So both U.S. crude oil and that international standard oil, Brent crude, both up over $100 a barrel. Now, Brent crude, again, that's the international standard that's looked at around the globe in terms of oil prices. That has swung quite dramatically during the war. It's risen from roughly $70 per barrel before the war in late February to at times more than $119 a barrel. So down from that high to $102.29, but again, way up from $70 a barrel at the end of February. That is not long ago. In 2026, at the end of February, less than 2 months ago, $70 a barrel up to $102.29. Now, on Friday, ahead of those peace talks, when there was a ceasefire in place and there were peace talks still to come, that Brent for June delivery fell 0.8% to $95.20 a barrel. So from Friday to now, it goes from 95 up to 102, give or take a few cents. And that is after those negotiations did not result in a true resolution to the war in Iran. Of course, Iran has been controlling the Strait of Hormuz. That has been, since this war started, their control of the Strait of Hormuz, which allows 20% of global oil shipping through, has been critical in the issues with the energy industry. The Strait of Hormuz has gone from being a globally important passageway to a term that everyone here who's paying attention in the United States is now familiar with. The Strait of Hormuz continues to be one of those linchpin centerpieces of finding a solution to the war in Iran. Now, U.S. Central Command said the blockade would be enforced impartially against vessels of all nations entering or departing Iranian ports and coastal areas, including all Iranian ports on the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. So this is playing out in the waterways, the economy being used as a tool in this war, supply chains, shipping being used as a tool in this war by both Iran and the United States of America now. Now, the U.S. Central Command said it would still allow ships traveling between non-Iranian ports to transit the Strait of Hormuz. And one more time, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Iran, all major exporters, all typically having oil flow through the Strait of Hormuz, which has been controlled by the Iranian Navy since this war began, pretty much. Even in the days after the ceasefire, when an early part of that ceasefire was the Strait of Hormuz reopening. After the ceasefire happened, Israel attacked Lebanon, intensive attacks in Lebanon. And after that happened, the Strait of Hormuz was closed again. Traffic in the strait has been limited. Marine trackers say over 40 commercial trips have crossed since the start of the ceasefire. For the time being, basically Iranian diplomats said that Lebanon is a part of this ceasefire. Israel and the United States claiming Lebanon not a part of the ceasefire. That confusion led at times to the strait being closed again. Now, limited traffic, 40 commercial ships since the start of the ceasefire, well below the number passing through when the strait was open and transferring oil in and out at a regular pace. Now, let's go ahead and bring on our expert. Let's bring on Patrick DeHaan from Gas Buddy to join us here on this Monday morning. Patrick, as always, thanks so much for taking a little time to join us. I hope your Monday is going well. Based on some changes that we saw following those failed negotiations, the announcement of the blockade, what are you observing in terms of oil prices here?
Oil prices up sharply this morning. Retail gas prices, though, the last couple of days have been inching downward. All of that developed because of the drop in oil prices we saw last Wednesday. You mentioned the ceasefire. That caused oil prices to plunge significantly. That led retail gas prices to start inching a little lower. Statewide average in Virginia today is back below the $4 mark. It's down about 8 cents in the last week to $3.99, but now with this new blockage of the Strait of Hormuz being announced, oil is back above that $100 a barrel level. And that could then again start pushing gas prices up here in the next couple of days. And how high we go is really going to be contingent. Kind of a couple things I'm watching for over the next 48 to 72 hours. Central Command, that is U.S. Central Command, clarified that this is going to be a blockage of Iran's ports, not necessarily the Strait. So I'm going to see what is going to move? Will anything move through the Strait? That's really been, from the oil market's perspective, the most important factor. You cited that some vessels, I think you've mentioned 40 vessels moved through since the ceasefire. That's really what we're kind of waiting to see. If something can be done to essentially restore the flow of traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. If it doesn't help, if ships kind of stay anchored, well, gas prices could continue climbing in the weeks ahead. But if the U.S. is successful on reopening the strait and the ships start moving, we could start to see oil and gasoline prices going back down. So again, a fork in the road here on what happens over the next couple of days. But there's been a lot of these forks in the last couple of weeks.
And Patrick, you mentioned how gas prices low here after the promising oil price drop over the weekend. So can we consistently expect a delay? International events occur, oil prices react to that, gas prices react here in the United States. We kind of lay out that delay for the impacts to actually hit us. Would you say that today is an ideal time for people to go to the pump and fill up their tanks, knowing that that delay is actually going to eventually turn to higher prices based on what we're seeing?
Yeah, probably wouldn't be a bad idea here in the very short term. If you're on E today or maybe first thing tomorrow, I probably wouldn't wait. I went out and filled up my tank this morning. Might be a better bet. And to your point, there is a bit of a delay both on the downside and on the upside. Last week, Wednesday's big plummet in the price of oil didn't really start to hit pumps until Friday, Saturday, and yesterday when prices started going down more noticeably. And they may take a couple of days to hit prices going up. So I do believe that across Virginia, we could start to see prices trickling back up. Could happen today. It may start tomorrow. But with oil up significantly, there's going to be pressure on stations to raise prices rather soon.
And when we talk about that up and down, the roller coaster in prices that we've experienced in this war, it can go up just as quickly as it goes down based on a Truth Social post, based on a ceasefire, based on an attack. That roller coaster, when psychological impacts on consumers here in the United States, what kind of impact does that have on people's mental as they try to budget and they try to figure out what expenditures they have to account for?
I mean, a lot of that surfaced in University of Michigan consumer sentiment scores, which dropped to their lowest on record. That really does take a lot out of Americans when they're constantly seeing prices go up, up, up each time they go to the pump, whether they need it or not. So there is already a mental psyche that's being hit. Morale of Americans is rather low when they continue to see gas prices going up in a way that just seems uncontrolled. So, I think we're going to start seeing consumers respond as these prices may remain elevated. So far for many Americans, this has only really lasted a month or maybe 6 weeks. So you're talking 2 or 3 paychecks, but the longer this persists, the more it's going to really hit consumer discretionary spending. And that's going to start to cause the flashing lights for the U.S. economy if discretionary spending continues to decline.
And something that we've talked about here based on some reporting that we've had is that consumer spending, then you see the tentacles start to spread throughout the economy and impact the tourism industry, the service industry, things like that, the retail industry. But There's also the factor of diesel fuel I've seen at times is more harshly impacted by the up and down fluctuations that we've seen, which in turn could affect supply chains and could affect 18-wheeler travel back and forth. I'm wondering and what I've been reading is how accurate is that diesel is impacted perhaps a little bit differently than regular, and why would that be the case if so?
Well, it absolutely is. Diesel demand is more inelastic. Just because diesel prices are high doesn't mean the logistics and supply chains can stop, right? If you're a company producing goods, it doesn't really matter what the price of diesel is. You can't just stop these assembly lines. You can't stop production. And so diesel generally sees more demand, and it's less inelastic, or I should say it's less elastic. Consumers, we can just say, well, we're not going to go to the store, or we're going to combine drips, or we're going to stay closer to home. So that responds more to price. Diesel doesn't really respond to price. The other thing to consider is diesel and heating oil are kind of very similar products, and we're coming out of winter when heating oil consumption was higher. Diesel supplies are lower as a result. Not only that, but out of a barrel of oil, there's a lot more gasoline produced than diesel. So you see prices going up more for things that are produced less, like jet fuel. Production of jet fuel is even less than diesel, and prices have virtually doubled. Diesel prices have gone up 66%. There's a little more diesel in every barrel than there is jet fuel. And that's why gasoline prices have seen the smallest impact so far, because most of what comes out of a barrel of oil is gasoline. Refineries can tinker with those yields a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's really what is produced in smallest volumes that is impacted the most.
And you talk about not only the impact on supply chains and individual consumers maybe going on long road trips, but jet fuel is also impacted here, meaning we could see elevated prices at airports. I'm wondering, are you able to summarize what kind of impact this could potentially have on spring break tourism and then into that early summer tourism season that is so popular for travel, especially here in Hampton Roads, that has a major impact on our economy? What do you guys typically see high gas prices having an impact on tourism? How much is there that could potentially dampen that season?
Well, it certainly depends on how high prices go and how prohibitive it becomes for consumers to travel. Right back in 2008, it was staycation. And back in 2022, we heard that staycation word coming back. So when prices go up as quickly as they have, it's not uncommon for Americans to start saying, hey, I don't know if we can afford the trip, the flight, all the expenses. Maybe we need to stay closer to home. And that's probably starting already. Airfares, to your point, up 10 to 20%, checked baggage fees going up. And those increases may have to continue so long as those prices for jet fuel continue to elevate. Supply chains dealing with it as well. Fuel surcharges are coming back. Delivery services are getting hit hard. So, you may see a lot more interest in consumers that may just have to scale back on their travel plans because the cost of fuel is becoming too prohibitive.
We appreciate the update. As always, Patrick, whenever we talk to you, you do such a good job of giving us a sense at the broad impacts. It's so easy to go to the pump, see that elevated cost, but the tentacles reach so much wider than that. We really appreciate you giving even extra insight on those impacts. Is there anything else you want to add before we let you go this morning?
Well, it's going to be a bumpy ride here over the next couple of weeks. And unless there's any resolution that's concrete and definitive, we may be seeing a wide range in prices that are possible this summer. If things go well, there's still the possibility that prices could be somewhere in the $3 range this summer. But the longer this goes on, the more likely we are to see $4 hang around. And there's still the distinct possibility that we could see record-setting gas prices if this is not fully addressed in the weeks ahead.
All right, Patrick, we appreciate it. And, I'm sure we'll see you again before long. We appreciate all of the information as always. So thanks so much for joining us. We hope you have a great week here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And as Patrick said, as long as this stretches on, we could see major effects, not just on your wallet when you fill up your gas, but on retail, tourism, travel, air travel. So a situation that is indeed very serious, and that, as he said, as it stretches on, continues to get worse. And as we see peace talks fail and blockades be implemented, continues to get worse. Now, very briefly there, Sarah and Samantha, I saw that we had Pope Leo visiting the Great Mosque of Algiers. He popped up live on our screen. It looks like perhaps he's already gone. I don't believe he gave any comment. Is there any value to going live out to the Great Mosque of Algiers? Looks like it's gone. It was on Channel 4 very briefly here. Okay, so we'll move on from that. Anytime we can get comment from the Pope in the midst of this back and forth with President Trump. We certainly want to go to that. It doesn't look like he gave any comment during that very brief visit that we saw. We do have a live event going on in Maryland right now. There is a quadruple amputee and professional cornhole player named Dayton Weber who has been facing murder charges, and there is a press conference happening right now that appears to be directly commenting on that subject. We're going to go live out to that press conference as we speak. Weber is accused of fatally shooting a 27-year-old on March 22nd. According to court proceedings, the shooting allegedly took place inside Weber's vehicle during a dispute between the two men. Let's listen in live now.
Decision that's changed his life and certainly his situation. There's no doubt about that, but hopefully that's going to come out at trial.
Any regrets that he has that he killed
I mean, obviously, this is not something that anyone plans. This is not something that anybody wanted to happen, but again, if he didn't do what he did, he'd be the one that's dead, and that's where we stand. And that's one thing that has never changed. Dayton has always stuck to that, and he's not a liar. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Before you run off, can you make sure you got your name?
Yeah, I was about to say, do you mind saying and spelling first and last?
Sure, it's Hamad Mateen, Hammad. Last name is Mateen, Matin. I'm attorney of record. I just already entered my appearance in his case. Also, Andy Jezik from the Jezik and Moise firm are also attorneys and counsel for this case.
And you pronounce it Mateen? Can you spell your first name again for me?
Sure, Hamad, Hammad.
That'd be great. Thanks.
This courthouse is your primary practice?
That's the only place I practice. I don't travel anymore. I just do Charles County every day. It's a pleasure.
And you're a Zuki?
I am not. She's a dude.
Okay, so we caught the tail end of that press conference. We apologize that we weren't able to get more of that in, but as you can see, it's a very busy morning here on Live Impact News. We're sure there's more updates to come on that case as that moves forward. As for us here, we're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, more Live Impact News, 11:14 a.m. on this Monday. We'll be right back. Okay, back here on Live Impact News. We spoke very briefly there about Pope Leo appearing on our live board here, visiting the Great Mosque of Algiers. This comes a day after the Pope's trip to Africa, and he has once again reappeared on our screen. We have the Pope live here in what appears to be mostly ceremonial events that he's conducting. It does not look like this is a situation where we typically would get any sort of comment on the back and forth that he has had with President Trump over the course of the weekend. Again, this is the first United States-born Pope, and he is now in a back and forth with the United States president, though there have been no further updates on their social media posts to each other. Now, he has said he will not enter into debate. The things that I say are certainly not meant as attacks on anyone. The message of the gospel is very clear. Blessed are the peacemakers. That is a quote from Pope Leo. I will not enter into debate sort of stands out there. Blessed are the peacemakers has been a moniker of his. We have seen peacemakers killed during the war in Iran following strikes in areas where they were present. So we know that that has been an issue. Why don't we listen in live very briefly here? No audio? Okay, no problem. We won't take a listen in because Sarah's exactly right here. This does appear to be just strictly ceremonial. This is not something that would pertain to the reason that Pope Leo has been in the news, but he came up on our live board, so we wanted to make that connection since we've talked so extensively about the Pope today in our updates about the war in Iran. Okay, let's move on to other political news that emerged over the weekend. A leading Democratic candidate for California governor, Representative Eric Swalwell, has had some serious accusations made against him by former staffer and others, specifically a former staffer who said the congressman raped her when she was heavily intoxicated, left her bruised and bleeding. It's an allegation that Eric Swalwell has strongly denied. Why don't I go ahead and I should have put in a disclaimer before we started talking about this. These accusations, the nature of this situation is graphic. There is sexual violence involved, so we just want to give a warning in case anyone is sensitive to that. We're going to read some quotes from her. She said, quote, "I was pushing him off of me saying no." She told CNN that, quote, about the incident that happened in 2024. After she had stopped working for Swalwell's office, she continued, quote, "He didn't stop." She noted it was the second time Swalwell had non-consensual contact with her while she was drunk. In 2019, while still working for him, she said she woke up with him in a hotel room after a night of heavy drinking, and she had no memory of what happened, but could feel physically that they had had sexual contact. So those are the accusations from a former staffer. There are also accusations via CNN of 3 other women who alleged various kinds of sexual misconduct by the Democratic congressman, including unsolicited explicit messages. So more accusations from other women against the congressman. Now, again, we want to state very clearly that Swalwell has denied these women's accusations. A quote from the representative: "These allegations are false and come on the eve of an election against the frontrunner for governor." In a statement to CNN, "For nearly 20 years, I have served the public as a prosecutor and a congressman and have always protected women. I will defend myself with the facts and, where necessary, bring legal action. My focus in the coming days is to be with my wife and children and defend our decades of service against these lies." We also have a tweet directly from Representative Swalwell that we'll pull up here for you now. "I am suspending my campaign for governor." So a major announcement there for one of the Democratic candidates for governor. He has suspended his campaign for governor. "To my family, staff, friends, and supporters, I am deeply sorry for mistakes in judgment I've made in my past. I will fight the serious false allegations that have been made, but that's my fight, not a campaign." So the run for governor over for the time being for Eric Swalwell, as he has suspended his campaign following these accusations from multiple women, including a former staff member who has accused the congressman of rape, an accusation that he has denied multiple times now and that he says he will fight. So that's a story we'll keep an eye on, but the campaign for governor is over and multiple very serious accusations against Representative Eric Swalwell. Now, we do want to stay in politics. We're going to move things back local here because we are just 8 days away from the special election on redistricting that is going to be taking place here in the Commonwealth. There is a new map that has been submitted by Democrats in the House of Delegates. That new map would redraw the voting districts in the state, creating what appears to be an 11-to-1 advantage for Democrats here in Virginia. Now, their new map comes in response to, hearkening all the way back to last year, President Trump asking delegates in Texas to find him more Republican seats. President Trump asking them to redraw their maps in Texas in order to gain more Republican seats. California then responded by redrawing maps of their own to gain more Democratic seats, and that has created a chain reaction that has seen multiple states, both Republican and Democrat, redraw their voting maps in order to create more seats for the party that's in charge of those states. And it all harkens back to President Donald Trump's public request in a press conference for Texas Republicans to find him more states. That domino effect, that chain reaction has made its way to Virginia, where Democrats are looking to get more seats in the House of Representatives for the Democratic Party. These two parties are now fighting through state governments to get control of the House of Representatives, and there are two options that are going to be on that ballot: to vote yes on the redistricting to redraw those maps in favor of Democrats, or to vote no on that redistricting map so that they are not redrawn to favor Democrats. Those are the two options. Both parties have been campaigning extremely hard on this vote here in Virginia. All eyes in the political world on the Commonwealth coming up here on the 21st, as what we do here in this state could have massive national implications on control of Congress and control of the House of Representatives. Now, we have multiple sound bites here, both from Republicans and from Democrats, about this impending vote. Again, April 21st is that special election. You can either vote yes to approve the newly drawn map that appears to favor votes for Republicans, that appears to favor votes for Democrats and districts for Democrats, or vote no to not approve that map that favors more seats for Democrats. Those are the options. April 21st is the day. Early voting has already begun, and leaders from both parties speaking out about this election. Let's first listen in to Republicans speaking about redistricting, then we'll hear from Democrats.
One big question is, how are you going to vote in 10 days?
A crowd of all ages gathered in Bridgewater Saturday as Republicans from across the Commonwealth took the stage, including House Speaker Mike Johnson and former Governor Glenn Youngkin, making their case against the proposed redistricting changes that will appear on the ballot April 21st.
What Abigail Spanberger has done is lied to everybody in the Commonwealth of Virginia. That's what she's done. That's what she's done. And Virginians are mad.
Speakers framed the issue as one of fairness and representation, arguing the changes could shift political power in Virginia.
This is about a power grab. It's about silencing the vast majority of Virginians. It's about also disenfranchising rural areas. It's all the things that Virginia has fought against from its very inception.
Several lawmakers saying the debate goes beyond party lines.
Everybody wants to say, what about this, what about this? This is not about our seats. This is not about John McGuire, Rob Whitman, Ben Klein. This is about what's best for our constituents.
Johnson arguing the new map could change how many Republicans represent Virginia in Congress.
This is not a 10-1 state. If you're watching at home, that's what they're trying to do. They want to redraw the map so that there's 10 Democrats and only one Republican representing the state of Virginia. It's wrong. This is not a deep blue state.
Meanwhile, former Attorney General Jason Miyares is accusing Democrats of misleading voters.
We have something that they don't have. We have the truth, and the truth's ability to cut through the deception. They're having to spend so much money because they're trying to deceive voters.
Supporters of the proposal say the changes would create fairer districts and reduce partisan gerrymandering. However, the Republicans argued the plan would weaken representation for many Virginians. And with early voting underway and Election Day just days away, Johnson and the other leaders encouraging their supporters to turn out.
In 10 days, Virginia once again has the responsibility and the privilege to defend that great nation. That's what this is about. I'm so grateful you're here. I'm so grateful you're doing this. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thanks so much.
All right, so the House Majority Leader and other Republican officials here holding a rally in Virginia ahead of that vote that is, again, just 8 days away on redistricting. Early voting is open now. What we've seen thus far is a high degree of voter participation in this election, even when it was pre the early voting stage, when you could vote via other methods. If you weren't able to physically make it out to vote, there was a high degree of participation across Virginia in this special election on redistricting. Again, it is something that is a nationwide issue that has reached our state. It clearly has had money pumped into campaigns to try and sway voters here in Virginia, and it carries on until the 21st, when that special election day will actually take place. Now, are we ready to go? We are ready to go. We have Lieutenant Governor Gonzalo Hashmi, we have Jennifer McClellan, a House of Delegates representative, and we have Tim Kaine, former governor, current senator, all speaking from the Democratic side on redistricting.
And we will unmute you at the end of the program. All right, Senator Kaine.
Hey, Dan, thanks so much. And it's great to be together with two great friends, Jen McClellan, my congresswoman, and Gonzalo Hashmi, my state senator, and now lieutenant governor. So it's really good to have us here today as we're kicking off these Super Saturday events tomorrow, April 11, and then next Saturday, April 18. 30 new early vote sites opening up around Virginia, a whole series of events planned to make it easy for people to vote. I commend both Jen and Gonzalo for their work in state government in earlier capacities to expand the ability of Virginians to early vote, to vote by mail, to vote early in person. Their work moved Virginia from a status of being one of the toughest places in the United States to vote to one of the most convenient places in the United States to vote. This referendum campaign is high stakes. It is an effort to stand up against a tyrannical effort to use mid-decade redistricting in other states to essentially allow Donald Trump to steal power in the House of Representatives. It began in North Carolina a couple of years ago, and it's going to Texas and other states, and that is having a dramatic effect on Virginia. For example, leading to the passage of the Republican Trump-sponsored reconciliation bill last summer that has cut Medicaid, cut SNAP benefits, and already led to closures of healthcare facilities in Virginia. So this is no time to be complacent or on the sidelines. It's a time to align our actions with our state motto, Sic Semper Tyrannis. We stand up against tyranny, particularly when tyrannical efforts are essentially punching Virginians in the face, especially the most vulnerable Virginians. So I encourage everybody to vote if you haven't already. If you have any questions about where to vote or how to vote, you can go to iwillvote.com, iwillvote.com, and that way you can find out exactly what you need to do to vote early. But having Saturday voting is a way of really making it convenient for people. An awful lot of folks have a hard time voting during the week because of work schedule. So Saturday makes it convenient. I'm now glad to hand it over to my colleague in the Virginia delegation, my longtime friend, and somebody who worked very hard on expanding voting access to make it easier for Virginians to participate. 4th District Congresswoman Jen McClellan.
Thank you, Senator Kaine, and good morning, everybody. So this weekend, Super Saturday, starts early weekend voting. Virginia now has 45 days of early voting, either in person or through the mail. And I want to reiterate what Senator Kaine said. Back in 2019, Virginia was the second hardest state in which to vote. But thanks to work that then Senator Hashmi and I did in the General Assembly, we went to the 11th easiest state to vote, including the Saturday and Sunday voting. And a lot of localities will have Sunday voting this weekend as well. As a result, we have seen participation in our democratic process increase. And that's important because in a government by, of, and for the people, government only reflects the perspective and therefore meets the needs of the people who participate. And throughout our history, we have seen efforts to limit who can participate, including through redistricting. And that is what we have seen in the last couple of years. First with North Carolina doing mid-decade redistricting to eliminate 3 Democratic seats when Democrats needed to pick up 4 to take back the House. As a result, we fell about a 1 vote margin short in taking back the House, and that was the difference between H.R. 1, which I call the big ugly bill, the largest cuts in Medicaid history, the largest cuts in food benefit in American history, the largest transfer of wealth from the bottom 10% of earners to the top 10%, really the top 2% of earners through those tax credits and the tax cuts. That redistricting in North Carolina was the difference between whether that bill passed in the House or not. Seeing that, Donald Trump then said to Texas, go find me more seats, and Texas complied. Then he went to Missouri, and Missouri complied, getting rid of the only member of the Congressional Black Caucus by making his seat Democratic. Now Republicans are surprised that Democrats are fighting back, but that's what we're doing. But unlike Texas and Missouri, California and now Virginia are leaving it to the voters to decide. We are leaving it to the voters to decide, do we let Donald Trump and congressional Republicans on their own with the stroke of a pen change the map so that they can keep the House, even though their policies and the president's performance is incredibly unpopular? Or do we vote to level the playing field? And that's why I'm voting yes. That's why I encourage everybody to vote yes. And I encourage you to vote early. The earlier you vote, the more confident you can feel that your vote will count. And so I plan to vote early, and I hope everybody else does too. Oh, sorry. I'm now happy to turn it over to Lieutenant Governor Ghazala Hashmi.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman McClellan, and thank you to Senator Kaine. I just want to thank my 2 friends who are on the call here for their tremendous leadership in Washington. And I think what we just heard is the perspective of what's actually happening in Washington by 2 individuals who are so close to the situation that we see happening in our federal government, the dangers that we are seeing throughout the country as it starts in Washington and impacts so many communities all across the country, and especially right here in Virginia. As my colleagues have shared, you know, the actions of the Trump administration have been devastating for Virginians in particular, starting with the tremendous losses of our federal workforce jobs, the impacts that the tariffs have had on our small businesses, on our farmers, and now we're launched in a war that was not approved by Congress, did not go through the full authorization process, any authorization process. And Virginia is the home to hundreds of thousands of military families and veterans who know the cost of what these kinds of actions have. And so this is the moment where leadership really matters. And as we go into our 250th anniversary for the country, we recognize the fact that Virginia led in that 250 years ago, the revolution that changed the world and certainly charted a course for democratic principles. It's time for Virginia to lead again. And what we hear from so many people in Virginia, around the country, is that people are looking for real leadership, competent, sober, and principled leadership. And this is what leadership looks like, that when we face perilous times, leadership takes action, and Virginia is ready to take action. And as Congresswoman McClellan shared, this is a matter that is now in front of the voters. Our Virginia voters get to decide. It's not Donald Trump telling people what to do, as he did in Texas, Missouri, North Carolina, and so many other states. It's actually our voters who have the opportunity to respond to the dangers that we are seeing at a national level, and making the case that Virginia is going to again be the leader for the next few years here as we navigate what Donald Trump has put into motion. And so I join my friends and colleagues and other leaders across Virginia, encouraging people to vote yes. I've already voted, and it is the action that every voter in Virginia has a responsibility to do. Saturday voting is going to be here tomorrow. We're going to have canvas launches, encouraging people to get out to vote. So I want to encourage all Virginians to get their friends, their families, and make sure that their voice is heard at the ballot box. This is an opportunity for Virginia to speak loudly for our Commonwealth, but it's also an opportunity for Virginians to lead the rest of the country. And that's what we're going to do in these next few weeks here. Thank you.
Okay, Lieutenant Governor Gonzalo Hashmi there speaking about this redistricting vote. And indeed, Virginians will certainly take action on April 21st. It has already begun. We'll continue to cover this story in depth as we approach that voting day on this upcoming Saturday. For now, we have a break that we're going to go to. When we come back, we're live in London here. We're going to take a peek at the Parliament in London as they discuss the crisis in Iran. For now, though, a brief commercial. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. We're actually going to head to a live event right now. Britain's Prime Minister discussing the war in Iran with the United Kingdom Parliament. That is happening as we speak in London. Let's go out to the UK.
My opening point, really, which is the absolute focus has to be on getting the Strait reopened as quickly as possible, because all the time that is closed to free navigation, the damage that's being done is being compounded, and that's why it's really important that we work with our allies to that end.
Justin Matters.
Madam Deputy Speaker, last week President Trump was making the most outrageous and dire threats in order to try and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. This week he wants to keep it shut, so I wonder if the Prime Minister can shed any light on what the United States' strategic objective is behind this latest move. What can be done to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and what this government can do more to protect our people from the economic consequences of this mess?
Let me be clear, I want the Strait open, not shut. And that is what we've been working on for the last few weeks and will continue to work on. And that's why when I spoke to President Macron yesterday, we proposed pulling together a leaders-level summit later this year to continue the work that we're already doing. But to be very clear with him in the House, that is to keep the Strait, or to get the Strait fully open, because that is the single most effective way to limit the damage that is being done to all of our economies.
Dame Harriet Baldwin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. When the Prime Minister was in the Middle East, did the subject of the UK's dependence on helium come up? Because it is an element which we don't produce in the UK and is vital for things like MRI scans in the NHS.
Well, we did discuss a range of issues. I won't go into all of the details, but we did agree that where we're working together already, we should double down and do even more in relation to resilience in particular, which goes to her question, both economically and defensively, and we'll take forward that work.
Melanie Ward.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I welcome the Prime Minister's continued clarity on the need for Lebanon to be included in the ceasefire. But Israel's tactics in Lebanon, forced displacement, evacuation orders, 165 children killed and 87 medical workers killed, are straight out of their Gaza playbook. Does the Prime Minister agree that in Lebanon, as in Palestine, there must be proper accountability for these war crimes, because this age of impunity puts us all in greater danger?
Well, I'm grateful for her question. It absolutely shows why we must keep pushing for Lebanon to be included in the ceasefire. It's vitally important that we do so. And of course, there must be accountability for all the actions that are taken in any respect in this conflict.
Christine Jardine.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I've been overwhelmed at the number of my constituents in Edinburgh West who've written to me over the past 2 weeks about the situation in the Gulf. They are, of course, concerned about their energy bills and the cost of living. But overwhelmingly, they are outraged at the actions of all the actors in this: Iran, Israel and the United States. And what they want from their government is more and stronger leadership on the international stage to open the Straits of Hormuz. So will the Prime Minister consider going to the United Nations with an emergency motion to the Security Council to get that done and to condemn the actions in the Middle East?
Well, as she probably knows, we have been supporting measures in the UN over the last 2 weeks, particularly some of those that were put forward by our Gulf allies, and I had the opportunity to discuss those last week in the Gulf. We will continue to work with them and others on building the necessary coalition to do all that we can to get the Strait open.
Stella Creasy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I welcome the tough stance of the Prime Minister in response to the demands of President Trump to get involved in this conflict, and his commitment that Lebanon must be part of the ceasefire. Our constituents need us to give them hope that they will not have to continue to live in a world which is driven by the uncertainty of when the White House takes to Truth Social. We can do things to de-escalate conflict, and one of those things is to support the two-state solution in Israel and Palestine, which he knows is at the heart of much uncertainty in the Middle East. Given that the conduct of the settlers on the West Bank
directly undermines the possibility of peace and the possibility of a Palestinian state. Will he commit to including their conduct in his conversations about the ceasefire and how we can give hope to people in the Middle East and peace to the people around the world?
Can I reiterate to her in the House our support for the two-state solution as the only way for a viable long-term peace in the region? And, of course, the settler violence is a threat to that. It's wrong in principle, in addition to that, and will continue to bear down on it.
Smith.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. For years, well before this conflict took place, members from all sides of this House have called on the government of the day to prescribe the IRGC. Whether it's been the Prime Minister answering or other ministers, there has always been a pivot to economic sanctions against the IRGC. We know that the Iranian regime have found ways through cryptocurrency and fake corporate structures to evade those sanctions. So what assessment has the Prime Minister made of the effectiveness of UK sanctions against Tehran? And on the presumption that those sanctions are failing, what precise action is he going to take to strengthen them?
Can I thank him for his questions? The IRGC has been sanctioned in its entirety. In relation to what more we can do, obviously we've been looking at state-based threats, which will almost certainly require legislation. He will be familiar with the review in that regard. So I think there are further things that we can do, and hopefully we can work across the House on some of those issues.
Liam Conlon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's clear now there was no plan behind this reckless war, and the resulting energy crisis is going to have huge impacts, both here in the UK and around the world. Can I thank the Prime Minister for his cool-headed approach in the face of pressure from the leaders of Reform and the Conservatives to follow the US blindly into this war? And does the Prime Minister also agree with me that it demonstrates how important it is that we finally get off the fossil fuel rollercoaster and continue our record investment in green energy?
Thank you. On both fronts, it was very important from the start that we made clear that we wouldn't be playing any part in this war, not least because of the consequences. And what the war has flushed out is the need to get off the international market and to have independence of energy bills in this country.
Iqbal Mohammed.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, British drones flew over Lebanon hours before and after the Israeli massacre, which killed at least 18 people in Bekaa Valley City, among 300 people across the region that day. Madam Deputy Speaker, we know no UK drones and surveillance flights have been used to feed operational information to the IDF during the genocide in Gaza, and it is deeply concerning that this may now be the case in Lebanon. Will the Prime Minister confirm if these flights were coordinated with the Lebanese army? Was intelligence shared with Israel or with the United States? What is our armed forces' role in this land grab and ethnic cleansing? And have any weapons supplied by the UK to Israel been used in Lebanon?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I've been clear throughout, and I'll be clear with him. This government is guided by the principle that any action we take anywhere in the world must have a lawful basis, and that's the principle I've applied throughout this conflict and throughout the time this government has been in power.
Matt Weston.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I commend the Prime Minister and also the leadership from the Foreign Secretary and also the NSA, I'm sure, in the work that's being done. And I welcome the news about trying to resolve the issues in the Strait of Hormuz. But I share concerns that have been voiced around the chamber here about the situation in Lebanon and also the West Bank. But closer to home, the Resolution Foundation have quoted that median working age households will be hit by £480 additional cost this year. What they're describing in my constituency is the cost of Trump. So will the Prime Minister explain more about what can be done to assist households here in the UK?
Well, the single most important thing is to de-escalate and get the Strait of Hormuz open, and that's why we're working so hard with other countries in order to do so, because the impact that it's having on our economy, and undoubtedly is affected by how long the strait remains closed for, and that's why we have to focus on that.
Harriet Cross.
Deputy Speaker, the price of energy is obviously important, but as important is the security of supply. And whether the government like it or not, over 70% of our energy comes from oil and gas. And the events of the last month must be a wake-up call to them that we must secure our supply. Luckily, we do have a secure supply under the North Sea. But, and although his government ministers might say otherwise, his government's policies are meaning that we cannot produce it. When is he going to get serious about our energy security and end the ban on new licences, end the EPL, permit Rosebank and Jackdaw, and finally get the UK drilling again?
Mr. Speaker, oil and gas will be part of the mix for many years to come. I've been very clear about that. Oil and gas is being produced 24/7 every day in relation to our energy supply, and it's really important that it does. That will be part of the mix. But equally, if we're to get to energy independence, which we need to go further and faster on renewables.
Sonia Kumar.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and I welcome the Prime Minister's statement and commend his leadership in steering the UK clear from the Iran conflict and blockade. During this war, healthcare centres, hospitals and ambulances have been attacked, and the Iranians now face acute shortages of care and medicines. What action is the Prime Minister taking to press all parties to comply with international humanitarian law and end the attack on healthcare infrastructure?
Madam Deputy Speaker, let me be really clear. Any attack on healthcare infrastructure is completely unacceptable, and that is why we've been very clear in relation to our own actions and the actions of anybody else. They must have a lawful basis, and that's the starting point for all of the work that we're doing.
Tim Farron.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Prime Minister rightly in his statement referred to defence security and energy security, but he made no reference to food security, which feels like a glaring omission given the impact of the doubling of red diesel on the farmers who produce our food. And I wonder if he's even aware that, outrageously, England is now the only country in the UK and in the whole of Europe that does not use its farm payment scheme to actively support its farmers to produce food. In these troubled times, does he agree with me now that's a glaring omission also? Will he turn around and change it?
Thank you for raising this. Food security is really important. I mean, it actually comes under energy security in a sense, because it's the energy costs that are pushing or could have the effect of pushing in relation to food security. And that's why it's very important that we do focus where we are focusing on, which is de-escalating the situation and reopening the Strait of Hormuz.
Rachel Maskell. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Resorting to violence doesn't achieve anything but has left 2,000 Lebanese dead and 1.2 million displaced. And as the Prime Minister is demonstrating, bilateral and multilateral dialogue is the way forward to get progressive change. Instead of just looking at increasing the defence budget, would he also look at increasing investment in diplomacy and development, which is really crucial in this ever-increasing destabilised world?
Can I thank her? I think that the work we're doing with other countries has to start with the political and the diplomatic. Of course, we're looking at military planning, but you can't have military planning without the diplomacy, because it's absolutely clear to me that the Strait of Hormuz will not allow for safe passage until there's a ceasefire in place, and all of the sectors involved in vessels going through the Strait are clear that they won't be putting their vessels through until that is the situation. So she's absolutely right about diplomacy.
Neil Shastri-Hurst.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Prime Minister is absolutely correct to praise the service of our armed forces personnel, and I join him in doing so, but they are being let down by the failure to deliver the Defence Investment Plan. That failure can only be the result of either inertia or incompetence within government. Which one is it?
Speaker, I remind you, they hollowed out the armed forces. They reduced our... They hollowed out the armed forces. They didn't increase defence spending. The last time we were at 2.5% was under the last Labour government. Now we're under this Labour government. So I appreciate all the advice, but after 14 years of failure, I don't really need that advice.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. From Iran to Russia, the major security threats we face are pan-European challenges, and the Prime Minister's referenced the need and our intention to work more closely with our European allies within NATO. Can you set out what more we can do to be ambitious with those allies on the continent to strengthen our defence and security partnerships, especially in the run-up to the EU-UK summit in the summer?
Okay, so an interesting look there, not just at the method of government, the way of governance in the United Kingdom Parliament, but also hearing pivotal back and forth about the war in Iran from a NATO member and a foreign country that is observing the war as an outsider, sort of, as opposed to our reporting here, our politicians here, who are speaking about a war that we're directly involved in. So I'm glad we got to take a live look there in London. Now, our time here on the morning stream is just about over. We have some things that we want to alert everybody to. If you are able to watch our noon show on 13 News Now, we will have more updates about that Oceanfront shooting that we reported on early in this stream. 8 people shot at the Oceanfront Saturday night. No fatalities, but 8 people shot, and we're going to have more coverage of that at noon. We're also going to have more coverage of that here on 13 News Now Plus at 3 o'clock. We will be streaming the press conference with Mayor Dyer and Police Chief Newdigate live here at 3 o'clock on 13 News Now Plus. Leading up to that 3 o'clock press conference, we'll have live impact news from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. Any updates that we have on all of the stories of the day, including new stories that come across our desks this afternoon, will be included in that 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock stream. But this is the end of our time on our morning stream. We thank everyone for spending time with us. We hope to see you either later today or tomorrow or whenever you get a chance to check in with us. For Sarah Calloway, for Samantha Spinacci, I'm Connor Reel. Thanks for hanging for a little bit.